Everybody, it's Young Black Jedi back again with another video. Yo, drug addiction was the best thing for me in my entire life. It was the greatest thing that possibly could have happened to me in the sense of being able to build a relationship with myself. Actually, through my own drug addiction, I was able to actually start flourishing and developing and becoming more interconnected with myself. So, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I'm interested to hear if anybody of you struggled with any sort of addictions. Doesn't really matter what addictions, but we're here to hold the space for everybody that has struggled with that. And somebody like myself, the more that I start to unpack and uncover my drug addictions, the more I'm starting to see that that was the best thing for me, right? That was actually the greatest thing that ever happened in my entire life. Because without addiction, drug addiction, I wouldn't be able to start uncovering and surfacing who I truly am, right? As I continue to keep evolving and growing along the path, the more that I continue to see deeper into the depths of my soul what it was that I was, you know, not attending to, what I wasn't bringing attention to, right? So the more that I continue to keep bringing attention and to it, intentional attention to it, the better my life continues to get. The deeper it is that I continue to grow into spirit, into truth, into wisdom, into understanding, into love, right? The deeper that I feel, the wider I go. The deeper that I feel, the more capacity I actually have, right? To be able to continue to be of service, right? Because drug addiction was the best thing that's happened in my entire life. I wouldn't be able to be of service without drug addiction. I wouldn't be able to be here speaking to you in front of this camera without drug addiction. And I'll get into the drugs that I did at some point, maybe along this storyline. But the point of it is that it actually allowed for me to start rewriting the narrative, right? To be able to start becoming more emotionally and energetically and spiritually attuned to who I truly am, right? Through doing things that were darker in its nature, right? Drug addiction is a very tough thing. I had a crack addiction. That was the biggest thing that I struggled with, right? I smoked crack probably for about 3 years, three, four, about 4 years, on and off, obviously. But I was blowing cocaine for about 10 years, pretty much straight. That was my big addiction, was crack cocaine. Yeah, alcoholism was a big thing too, and smoking marijuana was a big thing. And I'm not against marijuana or alcohol. Other people will do as they so choose, right? But for somebody like me, and drop in the comments below if you're somebody like me who just felt this like disconnect with life growing up as a kid and trying to satisfy that and satiate that by any means. It doesn't even have to be with crack cocaine or alcohol. But overuse of social media, I was very guilty of that, extremely guilty of that, right? Uh, Overeating, I was extremely guilty of that. Pornography, that was another big addiction of mine also. And let me know in the comments what people struggle with or what they've struggled with in the past. I really want to hear from you too, also, right? And what is it that you do in your life so that you can be able to remain as relatively stable as you possibly can, especially in the times that we live in, right? And the more that I start to see and I start to connect with God and I start to connect with myself and I get away from alcohol, I get away from drugs, I get away from having empty sex, I get away from the corn, I get away from all these things, I start to see that those those things were the greatest things that ever happened to me in my entire life. Going through all that was the greatest thing. I'm thankful for corn. I'm actually thankful for crack too. I'm extremely thankful for crack because without it, well, we wouldn't be here to be able to start speaking with all of us together here as one, right? If I hadn't hit what was in the stem, right? Or I hadn't blown that line that was on the rail, whatever I was doing, you know, I'm really thankful that I got to have those experiences with drug addiction because it's the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire goddamn life. And for me, I want to continue to keep growing and blossoming and unfolding and releasing into the stability of what I'm sitting on right now, Mother Earth. And the more that we do that, the broader things get. The more our horizons expand, the more we rest and surrender. And that's that real balance of masculine and feminine energy that we want to continue to keep growing upon, right? This is more of the path that I'm starting to walk the more that I connect with the things of my past, the great drug addiction that was the best thing for me in my entire life. And the more that I can continue to keep releasing into that, into the stability, and start to become more stable, right? And more grounded and more wholesome and more honest and more loving and compassionate, understanding for myself, it's very easy to illuminate those qualities into the world, right? And that is what drug addiction, the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life, has taught me. Is it's taught me that that's what I needed for myself. I needed more love and understanding and wisdom and knowledge of self, right? And to start knowing thyself versus suppressing thyself, right? With copious amounts of things that really become a detriment after a while, right? In the beginning, that's not how it started. In the beginning, it was all we went to the EDM shows, we took the Molly, we blew the coke with the girls, and we did all this and all that. But then it really started to get really deep and like dark, especially as I got older. Especially as I got into my mid 20s, that's when it really started to like really get bad. And last year was very difficult, and it was very very tough for me to surrender to those addictions. Right, I really battled with that, and I really struggled with that, and I want to know if you've struggled with that too. If there's something that's holding you back that you might be aware of, but we might not be in the place of that deeper state of awareness to start broadening beyond it, right? Really start opening ourselves up like a flower. You know what I mean? Because the flower doesn't grow this way; it grows this way. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm interested to hear if that's something that you've gone through. Let me know what you think in the comments, right? Or what you have going on in your life. I'm interested. You know what I mean? And the more that we can continue to keep having these conversations, the more that we can continue to keep talking about our addictions and the things that make us feel shame and humiliated, the more that we can actually start standing in our power and taking back what was what we gave away. Right? I was almost going to say that we that what got taken, but at the end of the day, like we gave it away. I gave everything to it. Nobody put a gun to my head and forced me to smoke crack. I did it myself, right? So the more that we can continue to keep unpacking ourselves and the various aspects of ourselves, we start to uncover more aspects. That's why drug addiction was the best thing that's ever happened to me. That's why I'm really thankful for it. I can sit here and honestly say that today, right here, right now. And we want to continue to keep allowing ourselves to blossom like a flower, you know what I mean? And surrender into the stability and become more whole, right? Because drug addiction to me, this is how I'm experiencing it, and I've experienced it, and it's something that I'm starting to understand more. And let me know in the comments what you think about this. It's just a lack of wholeness, addiction. Just I'm not as connected with the wholeness of myself and who I am. That's why I would go out and do these things and look for all these things and look to do this and look to do that, right? Why I would overuse things, why I would overeat, why I would watch porn, why I would have empty sex, why would I do all these things, right? Because I was felt inadequate and didn't feel whole enough within myself to be able to start having the confidence to be able to say, you know what, we can live a life without drugs and alcohol. We can live a life clean and sober. We can live a life that is in accordance to what God has for us, right? Not just me or not just what I'm constantly thinking should happen. Like maybe we can take a step back and maybe we can just surrender and rest into the stability, right? Rest into the stability of Mother Earth. And there's many ways that we can do that. Again, I've talked about meditation. That's a great one. I've talked about grounding, like I'm doing here, right here, right now. Just even sitting on the earth is a form of meditation, right? Just by sitting out in nature here, listening to the birds chirp is a form of meditation, right? Just by sitting outside, you have your cup of coffee or your cup of tea in the morning and just hearing the birds, just sitting in the sun. That is a form of meditation. We want to be able to reflect deeper back into our experiences, right? So that we can start pulling out all these gems or all these things that have been suppressed away by addiction so that we can start unfolding like a flower, right? So we can begin to blossom, right? So that these qualities of interconnectedness, wholeness, honesty, compassion and love, that those qualities be brought to the forefront, right, of our experience, so that that's how we can start operating. That's what I'm starting to realize as I continue to get further away from addiction. The further I get away from it, closer I get to God, the brighter things become, right? The more of these qualities that were suppressed are now starting to surface and now are starting to be what is creating this reality, right? Reality of wholeness, a reality of understanding and wisdom, and that will allow for us to continue to keep growing as human beings, right? Because drug addiction, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Drug addiction is just not, it's a lack of development. It's just, we're just stuck at a surface level emotionally and spiritually, and we're just kind of bogged down by all these emotions and traumas and conditioning that we just haven't worked through. Just a lot of psychodynamic things that just I wasn't working through. And let me know if there's anything that you guys are still working through and that you guys can see that is an area in your life that you've neglected or that you confused with. Because I'm here too. Also, I'm also in the same boat as you, right? I'm in the same boat as everybody else in this society, particularly here in the West. There's a lot of addiction. Most of our society is built upon these unconscious cycles of reactivity, right? These conscious cycles of unconscious, excuse me, cycles of addiction, right? Just look at a lot of the world and how it operates. You know what I mean? So there's a big shadow that is casted into the world. It's a very difficult thing to do in these times, as these shadows become a bit more stronger, right? In terms of the world that we see around us. But how can we step out of those shadows and bring those into the light? Allow, excuse me, those shadows to come up and bring them to the light. How can we do that, right? How is it that we can continue to keep growing as people, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. It matters about how you can grow, right? What is it that you want to do? What is it that your life dreams and aspirations are, right? What's holding you back from it, and how can we best help you? How can we all best help each other, right? Is really the name of the game for me, right? When it comes to addiction, and why that has been the best thing that's happened for me in my entire life. Because without it, we wouldn't be able to start operating on this level, this more harmonious level. I'm able to hear the birds. I'm able to feel the planet. I'm able to start feeling more and widening more. Awareness is like wide awake, wide open, like space. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the more that we can continue to keep working ourselves and allowing for an alchemical change, the more we'll be able to really start feeling and healing ourselves, right? But we have to be able to continue to become aware of what is it that is creating all these blockages, especially in these lower three chakras. What is creating a lot of blockages, right? That are stopping us from being able to attain and grow into the life that we desire, right? And for me, that's why drug addiction is the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life, because the perspective that is forming off of the alchemization and transmutation of all that energy that I was putting into drugs and alcohol, and now that it's coming to the surface. Now the Central Intelligence Agency can just operate and start to create a whole new way of living and a whole new way of being. That's why it's the greatest thing that's ever happened for me, because it's given me a broader, greater, and wider perspective on how I'm viewing myself and the world around me. So let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. I love to hear what you guys have to say, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. May the force be with you. Peace.